It was late at night when I first noticed something odd near the front of my house. At first, I thought maybe it was just the wind rattling the gate, or maybe a stray cat brushing against the siding. But then the sound grew sharper, more deliberate. The unmistakable clinking of metal against a lock made me freeze in place. As I moved closer to the window, my suspicion turned into shock. It was Karen from the HOA, crouched at my front door with what looked like a set of tools in her hand. She wasn't even being subtle about it, fumbling with the knob like she had every right in the world to be there. My heart pounded, because this wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a full-blown break-in attempt. Her face was twisted in determination, muttering angrily under her breath as she struggled to force her way inside. The porch light illuminated her every move, yet she carried on like she was untouchable. I realized then that all the petty fines, threats, and nasty letters had escalated into something much darker. She was so obsessed with controlling me and my family that she had resorted to trying to invade our home. Frustration was written all over Karen's face after her pathetic attempt at forcing her way inside failed. She yanked at the handle one last time, muttered something furious under her breath, and then pulled out her phone like it was her secret weapon. I could see the smugness return as she dialed, pacing in front of my porch as if she owned the property. Her voice carried loud enough for me to hear bits of her exaggerated claims. She spun a story about being harassed, about me being aggressive, and even tossed in the word dangerous like she was setting up a performance for whoever was on the other end. It was pure manipulation, the same tactic she'd used on neighbors for years to get her way. Only this time, she was trying to pull the law into her personal vendetta. Watching her point toward my house as though she was giving a report made my blood boil, because I knew exactly what she was doing, painting me as the criminal while she stood there, the would-be intruder pretending to be the victim. And from the way she was speaking, it was clear she believed the police would back her story without question when the officer finally pulled up. The confidence radiating off him was obvious from the second he stepped out of the car. His stride was firm, his expression calm but authoritative, the kind of presence that suggested he'd dealt with countless neighborhood disputes before and already had his mind made up about this one. Karen immediately lit up, waving her arms like she had just summoned a savior, rushing to meet him with her fabricated version of the story. She pointed at my house, shook her head dramatically, and spoke with urgency, as though she were in grave danger moments before his arrival. The officer nodded slowly, jotting down details, though his eyes were sharp, scanning the property with a practiced look. When he finally turned toward me, there was no hesitation in his steps as he approached. His voice carried authority, demanding that I explain myself as if I had been the one on trial before a word was even spoken. It was clear he believed this would be a routine call. Another simple resolve, the disturbance situation, where the HOA's word carried more weight than the homeowner's. He wasn't expecting anything unusual, and certainly not what was about to unfold just as the officer started questioning me with that stern, almost rehearsed tone. My wife stepped into the room and into view. She hadn't said a word yet, but her presence alone shifted the energy in an instant. The officer's eyes flicked toward her, his voice catching slightly, as if he hadn't expected anyone else to be in the house. My wife carried herself with calm authority, shoulders squared, expression controlled but sharp. And the air seemed to thicken with tension as she moved closer. Karen, still standing outside, kept gesturing wildly, thinking she had full control of the narrative, but the officer's attention was no longer on her. His posture straightened, his questions trailed off, and for the first time since arriving, hesitation crept across his face. My wife didn't need to raise her voice or defend me with frantic words. The weight of who she was spoke louder than anything else. I could see the moment of recognition flicker in his eyes, as though he was running through memories, matching her face with something that held far more authority than his badge in that moment. The room seemed to fall into silence, anticipation building for what he would say next, The officer's composure cracked the moment his gaze fully locked onto my wife. His confident demeanor from just moments ago melted into something else entirely: shock, recognition, and even a hint of unease. His jaw tightened, and he seemed to forget the script he had been following when speaking to me. Karen, oblivious to the shift, kept babbling loudly outside, throwing out more accusations and urging him to do his job, but her words no longer had any weight. The officer's focus was entirely on the woman standing beside me, and his silence said more than anything. He blinked a couple of times, as if trying to make sure his eyes weren't deceiving him. My wife hadn't even spoken yet, but the authority she carried in her presence alone had flipped the entire balance of the encounter. The officer took a small step back, his hand instinctively brushing the edge of his uniform as though grounding himself. And the tension between them was palpable. It wasn't hostility, no, it was something deeper. A sudden awareness that he wasn't dealing with just another civilian dispute. His expression shifted to one of caution, respect, and something close to disbelief as the truth sank in. And then it happened. The officer finally broke his silence. His voice lower now, carrying a weight that made every word echo with significance. He looked directly at my wife, his eyes wide with recognition, and the single word that slipped from his lips froze the entire scene. "Commander." The air shifted instantly. Like a curtain had been pulled back to reveal an entirely different reality than the one Karen had tried to create. Karen stopped mid-sentence, her smug expression faltering as confusion washed over her face. She glanced between the officer and my wife, completely unable to process what was happening. The officer's posture had transformed. Completely gone was the casual confidence of a cop handling a routine call, replaced with the rigid respect of a subordinate in the presence of someone far above his rank. My wife didn't flinch, didn't gloat, didn't even react outwardly. She simply stood there, calm and steady, as though this wasn't the first time she had faced such recognition. That single word had stripped away every lie Karen had spun, unraveling her fabricated story in seconds. And in its place was a silence so heavy even the night seemed to hold its breath.